Hello and welcome. Before we get into today's stories, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It was a warm summer night in 2021, just days before Megan Nubry's 24th birthday, when she left her home to meet someone she trusted. She told her mum she was heading out for a quick walk, no makeup, no fancy outfit, just her usual casual self. Her parents didn't think twice about it. Meg was always responsible, and it wasn't unusual for her to go out in the evenings. But when the hours passed, and she still hadn't come home, her family knew something was wrong. Megan, or Meg as her family called her, was the kind of person who radiated kindness. She grew up in a tight-knit family with her parents, her sister Claire, and her brother John. She loved animals, dancing, and her little dog Frank. As an adult, she worked in HR at a brick manufacturing company called Ibstock Bricks, and everyone there knew her as friendly, dependable, and always willing to help. When her sister Claire spoke to police, she explained that Megan had gone out that night to meet a guy she'd been seeing, a 30-year-old co-worker named Ross McCallum. They weren't official yet, but they'd been spending time together and seemed to be hitting it off. He was charming, texting her sweet things every morning, calling her beautiful. Everything seemed fine. Until that Friday night. Police began their search quickly after Megan's parents reported her missing the next day. Using number plate cameras, they spotted her white Citroën C3 driving near home the night before, which gave them a small sense of hope. But Megan still wasn't answering her phone, and no one had heard from her, so officers went to speak with Ross. Ross sounded calm, maybe too calm. He told the police that Megan had come over for about an hour, that they'd gone to McDonald's, and she'd left around 9. He said he'd been worried when she didn't text him back, claiming he'd sent her several messages asking if she got home safely.
Hi, is that Ross?
Hi, it is Ross, yeah.
Hi Ross, my name's Mia, I'm a police officer with Warwickshire Police. Hello. We've just come to your mum and dad's house. We're just looking for Megan, she's been reported missing. Have you seen her at all?
She came on Friday. I've been trying to call her loads.
Have you?
She came on Friday for about an hour.
Yeah.
Then she left about 9ish.
Okay.
I went to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then she said she gave me a call or a text when she got home. She never did.
She never did. Okay. So you haven't seen her since yesterday about, was it 9:30 you said?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay. And where are you at the moment?
I'm in Loughborough right now.
You're in Loughborough. Okay. What are you up to in Loughborough?
Sorry?
What are you up to in Loughborough?
I'm sort of having a few drinks in Loughborough.
Oh yeah. Okay. No worries.
But,
Are you in a relationship, you and Megan?
Yeah, we've been seeing each other. She's HR at work. I work with her.
Yeah.
We've been seeing each other for about a month, and supposed to go out of the house this weekend.
Yeah.
Her mum and dad are at the house. We're supposed to go around, but she never turned up today. I'm supposed to meet at like 12 o'clock.
Right. And did she say anything of where she might be going or where she might be?
All she said was she was going to go to. She's like going to McDonald's on my own to get like a vanilla milkshake.
Yeah.
That's it.
But when police visited his home in Colville, what they found inside changed everything. The living room was a mess. Items had been knocked over, and there was a wet stain on the floor that looked recently cleaned. On the walls and skirting boards were smears of what looked like blood. Ross had told his parents he'd spilled coffee, but the police knew better. When they found him later that night, he was out drinking at a pub. Officers arrested him on suspicion of kidnapping, and as they handcuffed him, he quietly confessed.
Involvement in the disappearance of Megan Nubry, and as a result I'm arresting you on suspicion of kidnap. So you do not have to say anything. No matter how you defend, if you don't mention one question, something which you may later rely on in court, anything you do say may be given in evidence. So I'm just going to put some handcuffs on you, alright? You can, I'll put these on first. Yeah, that's fine, no worries.
When asked where Megan was, he whispered, "Woodhouse Eaves." Then, when asked if she was alive, he said, "No." Police rushed to the location he'd mentioned, a quiet country lane lined with old stone walls and overgrown bushes. Around midnight, they found her. Megan's body was hidden under thick vegetation near the road. She was partially clothed, and it was clear she had been strangled. Her throat had also been cut, but that happened after she'd already died. She was just 4 days away from turning 24.
Hey up, hey up, hey up! Hidden by all the leaves at the minute.
It's Steph, mate. Drive down.
Just down here, Sergeant. See her legs.
Oh.
Looks like she has a lot of top.
Investigators pieced together the timeline using CCTV and phone data. They learned that Ross had used Megan's car to drive her body out to the countryside. Despite not having a driver's license, he drove about 40 minutes north, dumped her body, and threw her phone into some bushes a mile away. Then he was caught on CCTV disposing of items: his clothes, a towel, some of Megan's things, and even her glasses, which had been bent as if crushed in his hand. What made it all even more disturbing was that during this time, Ross continued to send Megan affectionate texts and voicemails, pretending everything was fine. Minutes after he killed her, he texted, "You're farcing amazing," followed by, "Did you get home okay, baby?" as if nothing had happened. Later he even Googled how to tell a girl you love her and sent her a voicemail saying he was worried about her. Police found that in the months leading up to the murder, Ross had exchanged thousands of messages with Megan. He'd opened up about his insecurities, including his struggles with impotence, and she had been nothing but kind and supportive. But when things didn't go as he'd hoped that night, he snapped. Prosecutors later argued that he killed her in a fit of rage after being unable to perform sexually, an act of humiliation he couldn't handle. At trial, Ross admitted to killing Megan but claimed it wasn't murder, saying he didn't mean to do it. The jury didn't buy it. After a 6-week trial, it took them less than 90 minutes to convict him of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 23 years before he can even apply for release. Megan's family sat through every day of the trial, listening to the lies Ross told and the pain he caused. When the verdict was read, they finally broke down.
Which Megan was the glue that held us together. Our lives have been torn apart through this loss. I know how difficult it's been for my parents and sister to sit at court every day, listening to the web of lies spun by someone Megan not only knew, but whom she trusted, someone who clearly had no love for her at all. We're the ones now serving the life sentence. No amount of time in prison can bring Megan back. We have to carry on with our lives as best as we can, but Megan will never leave our thoughts. She was about to buy her first home and was excited for everything she had coming up. She was so eager to start the rest of her life.
Her father later said that Megan always saw the best in people, even in someone like Ross, who clearly didn't deserve her kindness. She lost her life trying to help someone, he said. In the months after, her loved ones honoured her memory in every way they could. Friends and family organised a 5K run to raise money for the White Ribbon Charity, an organisation that fights violence against women. 50 people ran together, covering a full marathon distance in total, just like Megan had once dreamed of doing.
Jesse.
I'm telling you the truth.
But how do we know that? Because for 3 days now, you've been telling us lies. And then you've been telling Scott lies.
What do you want me to
lies.
tell you or do?
I want to know really what happened that day.
On an October morning in 2018, Pewaukee police walked into a quiet suburban condo and froze. 62-year-old Lynn Hernan was slumped in her recliner, motionless, a blanket over her legs, pill bottles scattered at her side. To anyone else, it looked like the tragic end of a sick woman who'd simply had enough. Her stomach had been troubling her for months. She'd been struggling, and the scene screamed suicide. But something wasn't right. Lynn wasn't just another woman who gave up on life. The air felt off, the story too neat. And what no one realised yet was that this wasn't a sad case of a woman ending her pain. It was the start of a cold-blooded murder investigation. To understand what happened in that recliner, you have to look at the person closest to Lynn in her final days, Jessie Kurchevsky. To the outside world, Jessie was the perfect caregiver. She shuttled Lynn to appointments, managed her medications, sat with her during those long, painful stretches of illness. Friends said Lynn trusted Jessie completely, maybe too much. But beneath that helpful smile, there were whispers of financial trouble. Jessie was drowning in debt, owing tens of thousands of dollars, and Lynn's trust, along with her money, became a lifeline. Investigators would later uncover that while Jessie appeared to be helping, she was slowly weaving herself into every corner of Lynn's life, right down to her bank accounts. On October 3rd, 2018, Jessie dialed 911 with a trembling voice, reporting that she had found her close friend Lynn slumped in a recliner, unresponsive. She told dispatchers that Lynn had been struggling with health problems and was likely taking too many medications. When first responders arrived, they discovered Lynn unconscious but barely clinging to life. Next to her sat a water bottle, later tested and found to contain a staggering amount of crushed eye drops. Tetrahydrozoline, the active ingredient in Visine. This was no accident. By the time doctors tried to stabilise her, it was too late. Lynn had been poisoned. At first glance, it looked like a tragic case of a woman with declining health, but the poison told a different story. As investigators began piecing together the days leading up to Lynn's death, a pattern emerged. Jessie, the seemingly devoted caregiver, was anything but innocent. She'd been manipulating those around her, spinning tales and presenting herself as the worried friend. Yet behind her calm exterior was a web of deceit. Jessie had been siphoning money from Lynn for years, opening accounts in Lynn's name, taking out loans and spending freely.
Everything on there is for always permission. Always. I know better. I know better. There's a reason I don't want to be sitting in these. I know better, and I really...
And you know why I asked, right?
I feel like you're asking because of my history.
That's why.
I feel like I'm sitting in cuffs for a reason now. I'll be very honest with you guys. I feel like this is all mixed together.
That's because it's policy.
No, but I mean, I feel like I didn't because of this. I didn't put two and two together until I saw you guys, and I'm wondering why I was going to Waukesha. Everything I've ever done, I've had permission from Lynn. I mean, she has in writing a million different things because of that. I've never forged her name. I've never nothing.
When Andrew, a longtime family friend, confronted her about the dwindling estate, Jessie provided falsified documents, convincing him that only half of Lynn's remaining savings, a mere $26,000, was available for distribution. She had forged papers in Word, changed fonts, and made it look legitimate, all while draining Lynn's finances. But the lies didn't stop at money. Jessie had cultivated a bizarre fascination with Visine poisoning, claiming in texts to her boyfriend Scott that she had once been poisoned herself by an ex. She wove elaborate tales of hospital visits, vomiting, and near-death experiences, all fabricated to manipulate those around her.
You really have nothing to say to me, do you?
No. I don't. What the hell do you expect?
I don't understand why you're being this mean. It doesn't even make sense.
I don't know you, Jessie.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. I don't. Nobody makes up lies like that to their person they love. You don't love anybody.
I don't love anybody?
No, you don't. You don't lie to people. You don't lie to people and make up so many lies.
About one thing. One thing.
One thing.
Our whole life was not a lie.
Yeah, I was.
No, it wasn't. How can you even say that?
Very easily, because you lied to me about something very serious. And then you told a bunch of other lies on top of that to my family about her being in the hospital and being brought back to life. You just kept making up more and more lies. You're diabolical. That's just crazy.
It was clear that Jessie's relationship with the truth was flexible, bending reality to suit her desires. Every lie, every forged document, and every carefully staged act painted a picture of someone preparing to cover her tracks. But ironically, she also seemed eager to incriminate herself, repeatedly inserting herself into interviews and giving contradictory statements that only heightened suspicion. By the time the authorities started connecting the dots, Jessie had trapped herself in a story she could no longer control. It started with the toxicology report. When Lynn's body was examined, the results were shocking. Her system contained an alarmingly high level of tetrahydrozoline, a chemical found in common eye drops like Visine. Normally harmless when applied to the eyes, ingested orally, it could cause vomiting, diarrhea, internal bleeding, memory loss, or even death. Investigators were immediately on high alert. Lynn's death had initially looked like a suicide, a tragic end for a woman suffering chronic pain and intestinal issues. But this chemical anomaly turned the case upside down. How had it gotten there, and why? Jessie, who had always been Lynn's caregiver, was at the centre of it all. Initially cooperative, she seemed calm and composed, answering questions in a steady tone, almost as if she were performing. But the more detectives dug, the more contradictions emerged. Jessie claimed she never administered any Visine to Lynn, yet evidence, interviews and later digital footprints told a different story. It became clear that someone had been carefully dosing Lynn over time, making it look like a self-inflicted act, and all signs pointed to Jessie, the very person Lynn trusted most.
I think you guys think I did something or I did something wrong, and if you knew Lynn, you knew the way she was. I didn't do anything, and I'll tell you that honestly.
I love
her to death.
I don't know her. That's why I'm asking you a lot of questions, because I don't know who she was.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one of the disadvantages of doing this job is you know her intimately.
Yeah, I know her very well.
And I'm investigating a death.
I get it.
And there's an anomaly in her toxicology. There's a drug in her system that's not supposed to be there.
And what would that be?
It's called tetrahydrozoline.
What is that?
The discovery of tetrahydrozoline in her system was not just a chemical finding, it was a damning signal that the sweet, caring caregiver everyone believed in had a dark side, a lethal side hidden behind her friendly facade. Her reckless audacity reached new heights when, from jail, she attempted to orchestrate forged recordings and falsified documents to support a fake narrative. By the time her trial began in October 2023, the evidence was overwhelming, and after 16 days, the jury found Jessie guilty of first-degree intentional homicide and multiple theft charges, ensuring a mandatory life sentence and exposing her as a dangerously cunning and self-serving criminal.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jessie R. Kershevsky, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information.
On the afternoon of July 28, 2023, a frantic call went out from a quiet Antioch home on the outskirts of Nashville, Tennessee. 33-year-old Donovan Holt told authorities that his wife, April Lynn Halt, had been found unresponsive in the bathroom by their 7-year-old son. She was in the shower, a plastic bag taped over her head. When paramedics arrived, April wasn't breathing. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors fought to save her. 3 agonizing days later, on July 31st, April was pronounced dead. Just weeks earlier, she had been celebrating her 29th birthday and posting upbeat videos to the more than 200,000 followers who looked to her for positivity and encouragement. April had built her online identity as a positivity coach, blending humor, spirituality, and raw honesty about her struggles with depression and adversity. She often reminded her audience to manifest the life they wanted and to embrace progress over perfection. But beneath the glossy TikTok posts, April's real life was far more complicated. She was a mother of 2, 11-year-old Serenity and 7-year-old Denzel, and an independent lash technician who had proudly built her own business from scratch. April's videos often highlighted her family, especially her close bond with her children. Yet, her marriage to Donovan, her high school sweetheart turned to husband, was rocky. They had shared both joyful milestones and painful separations, financial struggles, and bouts of depression. Their relationship was defined by a cycle of breaking apart and coming back together, often framed online as a story of resilience and love conquering obstacles. Privately, however, April had decided she was done. 2 weeks before her death, she filed for divorce. It wasn't the first time, but unlike earlier separations, April confided to her mother, Jaime, that this time she would not go back. Donovan too appeared to be preparing for an ending. Just a week before April's death, he pawned his wedding ring. Now, in the wake of April's sudden passing, police concluded there was no foul play. They said it was a tragic case of suffocation, perhaps self-inflicted. But her mother Jaime refused to accept that. April was a woman of faith, optimism, and devotion to her children. Jaime knew her daughter. She would not have chosen to leave Serenity and Denzel behind. To her, something darker had happened inside that Antioch home.
28th, she woke up, drank her coffee, journaled as usual, enjoying her peaceful morning, hugged and kissed her 7-year-old son Denzel, and her husband then went into the bathroom and began to argue and fight. My 7-year-old grandson put his ear to the door and heard his parents fighting, and he looked underneath to see both of their feet. He then listened some more, but he couldn't understand what they were saying, and so he then ran to his room. His dad shortly after came into his room, and he got him dressed and he fed him, and he then had him go check on his mom. He asked him to go check on his mom. 911 was then called. We got to the hospital, and she had no brain function and no blood flow to her brain. We did not find out about the bag, which was not disclosed to us, for over 6 hours. In that time, her husband had went back to the apartment 2 times, not knowing I don't know what he was doing there. On July 31st of 2023, my daughter was...
From the start, April's death didn't sit right with her family. Police treated the scene as a suicide, noting there were no signs of forced entry or struggle. But the details raised doubts. April's hands were free, there were no notes, and she had made plans for the coming weeks. An autopsy revealed no drugs or alcohol in her system, no underlying medical conditions, and nothing to suggest she was in crisis. The official cause of death was listed as asphyxiation due to suffocation, but the manner of death remained undetermined. April's mother, Jaime, immediately began pressing for answers. To her, this wasn't a woman who gave up. Just days earlier, April had been talking about new goals for her business, sharing moments with her kids, and discussing her divorce. Jaime believed her daughter had been silenced, and she wasn't shy about voicing that to investigators. Meanwhile, attention turned toward April's marriage. Donovan told police he was asleep when April died, only waking when their son discovered her. But friends and relatives remembered years of tension, financial disputes, arguments, and periods of separation that had left April exhausted. In the weeks before her death, she had made it clear she was moving forward without him. To her loved ones, that gave Donovan a motive. Despite these suspicions, the case stalled. Detectives had no physical evidence tying Donovan or anyone else to April's death. With no witnesses and no clear proof, the file grew cold. Yet, Jaime refused to let her daughter's story end there. She began organising vigils, speaking to the media, and demanding that the case be reviewed. For her, this wasn't just about April. It was about 2 children suddenly left without a mother, and the truth they deserved to know. When the Metro Nashville police told Jamie Dickerson that her daughter's death was nothing more than a tragedy of her own making, she refused to accept it. She had sat by April's hospital bed, seen the bruises, the marks that didn't make sense, and the emptiness in her grandchildren's eyes. To close the case so quickly felt like a betrayal, not just to April, but to the truth. Jamie knew her daughter. April had survived a tough childhood, started a business from scratch, and raised 2 children with grit and love. She had fought too hard to simply give up on life. There was no way she would choose to leave Serenity and Denzel behind. So, Jamie did what mothers do when they know something isn't right. She fought back. She started small, posting on social media, sharing her side of the story and pleading for someone to listen. Local reporters ignored her, police dismissed her, and still she pressed on. She showed up at community review boards, filed complaints, and demanded to see the full case file. She spent long nights poring over the reinvestigation report page by page, searching for the details detectives seemed determined to overlook. And details she found. April's body hadn't been free of injuries like investigators first claimed. There were bruises on her neck, her thighs, her ankles, a gash cut across her inner thigh, and the most damning piece of all, fingerprints. The plastic bag taped over April's head held just one set of prints. They weren't April's. They belonged to her husband, Donovan Halt. Despite this, the official story never changed. The case remained closed. Authorities were content to call April's death self-inflicted, ignoring every red flag Jamie shoved under their noses. But Jamie wouldn't let the silence win. She became her daughter's voice, chasing down anyone who might listen. She wrote a book on grief, Grieving Through Grace, using her own pain to connect with others while raising awareness about domestic violence. She sat beside her grandchildren through counselling sessions, comforting them when nightmares woke them screaming in the middle of the night. Her advocacy came at a price. Donovan moved to Texas and tried to bring his son with him, forcing Jamie into another battle, keeping Serenity and Denzel together. She was accused of influencing the children, of planting doubts in their heads, but Jamie knew better. Her grandson had begged her not to send him. He just wanted to stay with his sister, with the only stability he had left. By April 2024, a gag order silenced her online posts about the case. For the first time in months, her voice was forced quiet. But silence didn't mean surrender. Behind the scenes, Jamie kept pushing, kept investigating, kept digging for the truth she knew was waiting to be uncovered. And when she finally confronted Donovan directly with what she'd found, everything changed. By the fall of 2024, Jamie had gathered enough evidence to do what the police should have done from the start: hold Donovan accountable. She sat across from him, calm but unshakable, and laid it out plainly. His fingerprints were on the bag, his fingerprints were on the tape, and April hadn't put them there herself. Donovan tried to deny it, but the weight of the truth finally cracked him. He confessed. Jamie recorded that conversation. The very next week she handed it to investigators. At last, the case could no longer be ignored. The autopsy was officially reclassified. April's death was no longer a tragedy of her own choosing. It was homicide. On September 20th, 2024, the announcement came. Donovan Halt had been arrested in San Antonio. He confessed again, this time to detectives, admitting that he strangled April during an argument and staged the scene to make it look like something else. He even admitted to sending their son to check on her while she lay unconscious, a detail so chilling it made even seasoned officers uneasy. For Jamie, the arrest was both a victory and a heartbreak. Her year-long fight had finally forced the truth into the open, but justice was still incomplete. Donovan was indicted not for murder, but for reckless homicide, evidence tampering, and false reporting. To Jamie, that charge felt like a slap in the face. Strangling a woman, staging a crime scene, and letting your own children walk into the aftermath. How was that reckless? From that moment, Jamie made it her mission to push the case further. She wasn't satisfied with half measures. She wanted prosecutors to see what she'd always seen. This wasn't just a fight gone wrong. It was deliberate. It was violent. And it cost April her life. The fight for justice wasn't over. On February 18th, 2025, Donovan Halt was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 8 years of community corrections.